Okay, so hopefully this will be the last time this friggin' happens, because my internet this like wind or whatever we're having here right now is like really bugging my internet. So if this, I'm gonna try to finish the Pinewood adventure as much as I can because this next part is important. And if I'm gonna try to get this far, and hope that my internet does not crash again. So where was I? So the same morning that, or the same day that the fellas were practicing, getting to know their like new weapons and stuff, and seeing what's going on, having um, the Woodhawks go into town to see if anything's changed, if Umberto did his job or not. What happens but Emily coming back and realizing that, oh no, there's trouble afoot in town. Specifically, third time's be the charm. I hope so, Turumo. Um, so Emily comes running back. Is like, guys, I need your help. Guys, they hit the Pentagon. They hit the fucking Pentagon. No. They go back into town, and immediately they get greeted by a bunch of guards who are you see a bunch of townsfolk evacuating and leaving. There's a bunch of guards trying to like take control of chaos and whatnot. And what happens? But the captain of the guard being like, "Oh, you guys again! I told you guys are not welcome here." And pretty much like they convince him like, "We're here to help. Please let us help." Um, so with Danny and Lewin in tow, they go in and help, and they immediately see a bunch of guards that are guarding the entrance to the gate get shredded by a bunch of like swirling flying daggers. And what exactly is going on in there? Well, this specifically is going on. The guys encounter the apparatus of Qualish, a huge lobster tank that is causing trouble in town. It's wrecking the market. And the fellas decide to split up in order to best combat the situation. Um, Specifically, Actian and Veril decide to help the townsfolk and confront the apparatus directly. Now it's got that chat. It really does. Now that you say it like that, he pretty much they go and like Danny, Actian, and Veril go in to like confront the thing head on, and also save townsfolk there. Nihilus, Kyojuro, and Lewin go around the other way. Specifically, they go around. So this battle is going on here. Actian, Veril, and Danny go this way. The others go this way to try to kind of hit it around the back, but they realize that by hitting it from the back, they're actually it's going to take them the longest way. So they're going to have to rely on a lot of like range weaponry. So, which is where Kyojuro kind of fails. Oh yes, I summon the Hand of Lycan Bones to attack my enemies. How could you tell? Um, for a lot of the stuff, it was out of your range. Actually, I was surprised because you guys had to like went around this way and had to like pretty much cross the front here a lot and see like the ruined city hall building in like pretty nearby. Um, like you have to guys pretty much get here in order to start being start in order to like use um, your range weapons properly. So to which Kyojuro was still shit out of luck because Tav decided Kyojuro just needs his Nodachi. He doesn't need anything else. He's like, you sure you don't want a range weapon? It's like, no, I'm good. He should have taken a range weapon, and I think Tav learned his lesson from that afterwards. Sorry, a little water to hydrate. Um, so this tank is not just a tank, but also there's something going on inside which causes it to create like these kind of cloud spells that cause mega damage. Um, Lewin is very. Danny was very funny. Actually, before I get to what happened, like two important things happen with these NPC homeboys. Number one, Nihilus entrusts Lewin with this wand of magic missiles to add extra firepower to the group. Um, which I think was a beautiful moment. He's like, here, you'll need here. I think you'll need this more than me. Or I can't remember what you said exactly, but you offering up a magic item to an NPC was like a beautiful, Saber. I love that moment. That moment lives in my head forever. Um, Meanwhile, Actian and Actian and Varel check on to see what the casualties are, to see if they can find Farmer Woodhawk. They do find Farmer Woodhawk. He and okay, I forgot to add a specific element. I made a good friend that day. Yes, you did. He did. He and like the crossbowmen that belonged to the guard that were part of the guards did a lot of the major heavy like DPS for that round, or did a lot of the consistent damage for that battle. But specifically, I forgot to mention an important side character. His his name is Bobo, the orangutan. So, their first session or their first time, or maybe second proper, but one of their first encounters next to Danny and Lewin at the local tavern / inn was a creepy man, a creepy human man, and his pet orangutan named Bobo. His owner, I never gave him a name. Bobo was the star. And immediately when Actian and Varel showed up to like confront this apparatus, this contraption, this clanking contraption, Actian, they saw that Bobo's owner and Farmer Woodhawk had been burned alive, but Bobo was still alive and hiding in fear. Actian immediately was just like, I have to save Monkey. I have to save this ape. And he immediately left. Lewin was into position to essentially like put himself in danger to like distract this machine in order for Actian to like get a better shot at it. And instead Actian was just like, no time, Danny. This ape needs to this miracle of nature needs to be saved. To which Danny was promptly almost killed. He got like hit by those giant claws and he almost died. Had it not been for Varel going in and like reviving him with or like curing his wounds with cure wounds, Danny would have died. Like, cause an Actian moment. Imagine putting yourself in danger to give Actian an advantage against this giant machine wrecking everything, and all he does is just like, thanks for distracting this thing. I'm gonna save this ape. And it's like, but. So, Actian and Varel distract this thing while Kyojiro, Nihilus, and Lewin close in and are trying to do as much range damage as possible. And then this thing casts Cloud Kill on Actian and Varel and almost kills them. Like, they manage to like make their saving throws, but they almost die. And then Actian decides, I'm a 1v1 this thing. And which is the scene you see right here. And what does this thing do? It casts right on top of itself. Right, because Actian was fighting without weapons. He threw his longbow down. He didn't even draw short swords. He wanted to like go up and fight this machine. which is when whoever was piloting, which we found out because of some of the little vents opening up and leading to the driver to mock the fellas by mimicking their own voices. It was Umberto. Umberto was piloting the apparatus, and immediately casts the fire cloud spell, essentially. What was it called? Hold on, because it was a pretty big deal. It was the one spell that I thought, do I cast this on Actian and Incendiary Cloud. He casts Incendiary Cloud. I started Vero starting to doubt his own deity because it's constant near-death experience. Yes, especially after getting hit with Cloud Kill, saving against it, but then also witnessing Actian and this thing get engulfed in an incendiary cloud, this smoky black cloud of cinders and flame, and seeing Actian pretty much almost beef it right then and there. I had to ask myself, do I really want to kill Joe's character right here and there? So I thought I'm going to let him save on this, because as much as I would love to see Joe's reaction to get to having his character beef it, I thought for the sake of drama I would let him live, which is then where Kyojiro and the rest of the team catch up and pretty much defeat the apparatus, open it up. They find a way to open it up, and Kyojiro goes inside to try to capture and fight and capture Umberto, which Umberto then uses this amulet he's wearing to cast Cloud of Daggers on him to try to essentially deter Kyojiro, to which does not work. Kyojiro, because he casts it right on top of himself, which makes him lose concentration immediately, which cancels the spell. So Kyojiro manages, he tries to slip by, but Kyojiro catches him between his thighs and and chokes him out that way. So they capture Umberto, and they find out from him, as well as some of the clues from the town's biggest simp for the mayor, Phoenix, who looks just like Joaquin Phoenix, but as a town guard. They find out that Umberto, after leaving the goblin hideout to come back and essentially tell the mayor that it's over, Zag is dead, they can drop the whole ruse, they can stop worrying about the goblins are going to back off now, they're done. Because of all the pain and suffering Zag and the fellas put him through, he snapped and pretty much decided to kill the mayor, because the mayor sent him on this mission that almost ended his life and definitely ended in torture, causing him to just kill the mayor. And then in the process of killing the mayor, he finds the amulet the mayor wears is magic, which is funny because it's this weird little mayoral symbol was actually a magical item. Followed by him stumbling upon the location of the thing that Zag had been looking for the entire time, which then just leads to him finding it, activating it, and then immediately using it as to rampage through the town in order to find the fellas to kill them in revenge. So essentially, if the fellas and the mayor had a MacGuffin that carried us all through the rest of the campaign, yes, sir. I just think it's I told the guys that if they didn't show up to go help the town, if Emily for whatever reason didn't make it back alive or whatever, the guys while waiting at Woodhawk Farm would have eventually come into contact with this big machine coming out of the woods. As the DM, do you think Actian's Actian keeps getting worse and worse. Do you think he has a peak and then plummets into a little betterment? Um, I think Actian plateaus. I think Actian doesn't get worse. I think Actian is actually consistently a weird wild card because as I've described before, Actian shows up, he immediately wants to cause trouble by essentially acting out on his base desires. Um, he wants to constantly like confront things because he thinks he's such a big badass. Um, so there's that element. Um, it's I don't think he gets worse. I think he stays the same. I think he's consistently, oh, like I think he's consistently like just a weird or just like I think he's just consistently like a dumb dude. Okay, he's not like I would say he's I would want to call him a himbo. I mean, he is attractive, and I'll get to the little epilogue bit for this adventure. But like, he is the acting. Oh, actually, I just found the drawing of the shaman for the goblins. So here's the guy who spoke like Michael Caine. You fellas showed up, help more people. So I'm going to give your tall friend this bag of beans. I don't want to betray my people. I love my people. I've betrayed my people too many times. Also, speaking of which, here's epilogue Emily. So, I need to explain what fucking happens with the epilogue. So, the guys defeat. The guys do their job, and they defeat. Also, hey, Lewin, it's us. Oh no, Danny, we got to get jobs as farmers now. So they managed to stop the machine, stop Umberto. The goblins are now going to back off. In fact, this leads to peace talks later. Danny Lewin Super Show. I love it. Hey, paisanos! It's the Danny and Lewin Super Show. So after pretty much putting everything back into order, the town decides to kind of like elect the orc Captain Lurs as the new mayor, essentially. He begrudgingly takes it, but I guess he figures that like as someone with actual leadership experience, it's better than nothing. Umberto gets tried for his crimes and gets put to death. To which Actian immediately wants to like perform some bizarre ritual from his people where they like pee on the body and like burn it or something. I can't remember what it was, but I know it like bothered it bothered me, and it especially bothered that orc cleric or that orc bothered the captain of the guard. Also, forgotten arc of us staging a coup against the mayor. It wasn't forgotten. It was just like you guys had that plan. You guys made plan. Oh yeah, that's it. Actually you're right. Sorry. When you the second day, you essentially used Emily because she looked up to you guys. You saved her from this. You saved her from Wester, and she wanted to help. So you guys, as a way to like create, essentially create subterfuge against the mayor, enlist Emily to essentially put out flyers and pamphlets to like kind of wait to like kind of convince the folks to like rise up against them. It never came to fruition because all the horrible stuff that happened afterwards, thanks to Actian and his tomfoolery. If you guys never CBT that Kenku, this campaign might have gone a little longer and turned into like a political intrigue campaign but because of the CBT and Azag's torture and Actian's threats, you broke this Kenku and caused him to like essentially rush the story forward to a horrible climax. Actually, I would go as far as to say that like if you guys didn't do that to Umberto would have been a more long term character. The man of tomfoolery. Yes, I would say that if you guys didn't treat Umberto if the Umberto situation didn't go the way it went, it would have definitely turned the campaign into one of political intrigue. Umberto would have been a constant looming stealthy figure for you guys to like fight and like encounter. It would have definitely been more. There might have. I mean, depending on how things would have went. I mean, I'm pretty sure there would have been like, I don't know, probably a situation where you definitely would have like, I don't know, gotten thrown to jail at a certain point if things went wrong, and there would have been a jailbreak session. I know if that happened, you guys would have never encountered the apparatus and fought it. Instead, it would have been just political intrigue and a war of like influences and like trying to like a war of hearts and minds, essentially. But it never happened because you guys CBT'd a bird. You CBT'd a crow man, and he he had a psychological breakdown. He had a psychotic breakdown. So instead, you fought a lobster mech in the town square. I think as I pointed out to the guys too, if Nihilus used the marble elephant, he could have had the elephant knock the apparatus down into the well and caused the entire. Essentially, would have like ended the fight sooner. But also Umberto probably would have like hid inside the apparatus, and you guys would have had to like essentially dodge against all these different cloud spells that were being thrown at you. So there were ways the fight could have gone, but I let you guys make the choices you made. So epilogue for this story. Like I said, Umberto gets put to death. The captain becomes the new city leader. The guys are welcome back as heroes. They're welcome to come back anytime. Actian, because of him being caught in the incendiary cloud, loses his beard and hair. Like, his long hair and his beard gets, like, burnt off. So he ends up getting depressed because of how short his hair is now. Also, he gets hit. Also, to like cure his wounds of from like his burn wounds, he gets put inside the special like bath by the local alchemist the local alchemist herbalist, the local herbalist, who is a wood elf who reminds Kyodro of his mom. If his mom, and which means that like, I guess. Tav, if you're still watching this, yes, the acting depression arc that went on a bit too long. Yeah, I think so. Actually, Tav, explain to me. When Kyojiro said that the local herbalist, who runs the potion shop, reminds him of his mom, this wood elf lady. Did you also include the fact that she hit on Actian and then would boast to everybody in town about how big his peepee was? Because that's a weird thing to bring up. Unless you think Kyojiro didn't hear that part. Because as I said before, after you guys leave, that lady pretty much talks about how big... Yeah. What do I mean by that? I just like to think that, like, yeah, because as I told you guys in the epilogue, because I think the epilogue took, like, was almost like half a session longer. But yeah, like, yeah, this wood elf that like cured Actian's burn wounds, talked about how just pretty much would spend the rest of her very long lived life talking about how big Actaeon's peepee was, and with each telling making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So, so yeah, like it's a funny element. Speaking of happy endings, um, Danny, Lewin, and Danny. So sad. Actually, first some sad endings. Unfortunately, Farmer Johnson did not make it. Um, Verrill forgot to did not cast Gentle Repose, and then followed it up with Raise Dead to bring him back to life. He forgot about the Wombo combo. Um, and so he died, and Emily would then fall into the care of Danny and Lewin. Like, Danny and Lewin pretty much decide that they're going to live normal, hardworking lives and pretty much become workers on the Woodhawks farm. So Emily wouldn't be alone. Kyodro does try to convince Emily to like join them and become his apprentice, but she feels bad about abandoning her life that she kind of was part of with her dad and wants to kind of keep that legacy, but also will not get rusty on her training that she learned from Kyojuro. So she still decides to like learn how to use a sword just in case the need should ever come. But Danny and Lewin decide, yeah, you know what, we're gonna stick around here and we're gonna help Emily and help her run the farm. Because because they stick around, this causes Danny and Lewin to be seen no longer as delinquents but as normal, like, hardworking citizens, which causes Danny to finally get a proper chance at getting with Virginia. So Danny and Virginia get married and end up together. And then I brought up the fact that, like, Danny's life is way shorter than Virginia's, and Lewin's is a little longer than Danny's. So, like, unfortunately, another sad element, aside from Emily losing her dad, is that eventually down the line, Virginia's going to outlive Danny, but she never remarries because she ended up loving Danny that much. So, and then the guys themselves, the fellas themselves, they actually end up getting back on the train and heading out towards west to see where the road takes them, but not before Nihilus' patron tells him, "Hey Nihilus, I need you to take me over to that apparatus and help me take so I can take the magic out of this thing so it never harms anybody again and it just becomes like a playground or something." Which he does. He does that. So they were able. So essentially, so they leave. Pine Ward with this amulet that Kyodro takes off of Umberto, the thing that was helping him cause all these cloud spells. He doesn't like it, so he hands it over to Nihilus because he's more magic oriented, and he's just like, I don't like this either. Let me see if my patron knows anything about this. To which his patron says, yeah, look here, Nihilus. That the gut punch regarding Virginia is the catalyst for me making the guys miserable with my story constantly. No! That is not true. There's no fucking way. Hold on, Tav, hold on. Are you saying the fact that Virginia and Danny had a beautiful married life together, but then Virginia would outlive Danny, and then Virginia would never remarry because of how much she loved Danny in the end? That pain is what causes you to like emotionally torment your player characters? I don't know how to feel about that. And I'm somebody who's constantly killing my PCs and my solo games. So, but anyways, so Nihilus gets visited by his patron and tells him, Nihilus, I'm gonna need you to go to Waterdeep to meet a contact who can provide information on what to do with this horrible, possibly cursed artifact. So, do that. Every session ends with these guys feeling sad and mad. Oh, well. Now I'm feeling... Now, see... Tab, maybe you need to give him something happy to like, look forward to. Actually, speaking of which, Tab, I realized that there's a sketch I did earlier, and I need to ask you a question. For some reason, in my head, this is how I imagine Kagetora to look like. What do you think? Would you say this is pretty close to what Kagetora in your... Because in my head, I didn't realize that this, like, random sketch I did kind of looks like Kagetora, now that I think about it. Like, makes me think of Kagetora from your campaign. So, for some reason, this is how I imagine her looking like now. So, if she dressed up, like, in a weird way, like Polka from Hololive. So, okay, where was I? So, that arc ends, and then comes in the filler arcs, which I think are some of my favorite ones, now that I think about it. The filler, that arc I think was great and beautiful, and I love it. Nah, she's straight up the Fate character. Okay, fine. I'm not mad. I'm just saying, okay. So, in comes the next part of their adventure. The road to Waterdeep, in which they encounter a hag and her apprentice. Now this part I didn't map out because it was kind of more abstract, but essentially what happens is the fellas are riding their train to Waterdeep. Everything's going normal. They meet a couple of new characters. Specifically, they meet Drusilla, aka the future Mrs. Verrill. So they meet Drusilla. Oh boy, we get to talk about Redacted. Yeah, I'll bring it up. I have to. This is part of the lore. But they meet Drusilla, who is a sex worker who tries to advertise and entice the lads to go to her brothel that she works at in Waterdeep, and Actian is fucking rude to her. To which he blames on his depression arc. Which I think was like the worst, which is maybe for me the worst like explanation. I really shouldn't be talking so bad about acting, especially since Joe isn't here to defend his actions. But Acting's like reaction to Drusilla coming in and trying to like hit on him ended up with like just like Jesus Christ, man, the Drusy, damn it, Saber. Yeah, it's the Drusy. Which is why she's named Drusilla. I hate to admit it, but I think I told you guys already, but her name is Drusilla because of the Drusy. So, she shows up and something stops the train, to which causes the guys... Oh, I actually think I have actual maps for this part. Also, here's my first sketch of her. Someone needs to defend Actian. Let's call Saul. So here's my first sketch of Drusilla, and then the final one. And essentially, I keep saying that a lot. I'm sorry. But I did draw some maps because I had Actian's player was kind of bummed, or because of him losing track of where he was during the Zag and Pantheric fight, I had to start making maps in order to make sure everybody's geography was correct. So I made some train maps. And essentially they get stopped. The train comes to a stop. The train guards investigate, and a bunch of ogres. There's an ogre confrontation. Let's just say that an ogre confrontation happens, and the fellas spring into action. Except for Actian. Actually, no. Actian actually takes a javelin to the arm, flexes to like get it out, and then tries to huck it back at one of the ogres. They pretty much do their job and like keep the ogres at bay pretty well until the sickening radiance hits, and everybody starts beefing it. Love me some good ogre confrontation. So they get hit with a green radiation spell. This is the sickening radiance, and it causes everybody except Kyojiro, who keeps making his Constitution save because he's a fighter, to pretty much just like get knocked out and start slowly dying, including Drusilla, who, after seeing these guys bravely put their lives on the line to protect all these random people on the train, she actually jumps in to try to save them, only for her to we got hit with the rads, only for her to get hit with the radiation as well, to which causes someone. Okay, the sickening radiance was supposed to knock the guys out in order to progress the story forward, but because Tav kept making his save as Kyojiro, it caused this confrontation to go longer, which meant that the guys definitely could have like died, and would have to re-roll new characters, because he kept trying to go in and like find any kind of first aid kit to like save the guys. And after like pretty much finding like a first aid kit and running back, that's when on his way back, he kept on getting hit by these eldritch blasts and these fire bolts, which really kept pissing off Tav, which I think is funny because like Tav was like genuinely like upset that he's thinking like, he put us in a situation where we can't win, huh? Who are we supposed to win? How are we supposed to win? And which is when I revealed the Tav, like, no, you guys were supposed to beef it, but because you held out so long and were trying to save your chums, you're getting the healer feat as added to you. The same way Actian got the vigilant feat because of how much he fucking rolled perception all the time. So the guys woke up. The train, Varel and Drusilla are gone, as are the amulet. As is the amulet. It was a scripted event. It was and it wasn't. I really thought you guys would have like beefed it, or at least would have gotten knocked out. I thought this was like an easy spell for you guys to get knocked out with. I thought I really had you guys like outclassed, but it turns out when you have a character who can hit things at a +5, and has a high save, it's kind of hard to win. So it's I'm not too mad about it, but yeah, I underestimated you guys is what I'm saying. So the guys wake up, they see that their homeboys are missing. Nihilus sees that his magic doodad is missing, so they gotta track him down. They activate the marble elephant to go into the swamp and find it. At a certain point, Actian used up one of his beans, and when Actian woke up, the bean that he planted was gone. So, which led to this situation. While they were going in and trying to find the location of where their friends were captured and taken to, they ended up confronting Actaeon's new son. There's no better way to put it. Actaeon found a son. This ent, this big willow ent, became Actaeon's son, and the whole Actaeon Enti arc began, and luckily this ents are lawful good, so he was also looking for the ogres and the little animals that to which he referred to as the Dragonborn that were taken. So he was also on the trail of these kidnappers. Meanwhile, said Dragonborns had to find a way to get out. Woke up inside of this crudely made cage. One ogre got taken out during the fight. The other ogre survived, but was not in great health, and he was essentially hoping to cook up these Dragonborns as food. They woke up, and a second ogre confrontation happened, which led Varel to cast Inflict Wounds, his new favorite spell, and one-shot this ogre. So he killed this. We want to make the story into a VN someday. Yeah. Varel kills this ogre with Inflict Wounds, and Drusilla immediately remarks with, "That's it. When we get back to Waterdeep, you get it for free." Ogre fucking pizza. Yeah. But yeah, so Varel kills the ogre. Drusilla pretty much tells him that he gets free segs from her. He doesn't have to pay for it. And as they're about to take off and try to meet it back with their friends, the big confrontation happens. We're now introduced to our two main antagonists of this filler arc. Look here, look, listen. Yeah, he says, "Look, listen," and he pretty much puts his hand on his shoulder and kills him in one go. But anyways, we meet our antagonists. Margareta Steinweiss, aka Mags, and Agatha Onionrot. There's Agatha herself, and there's Mags herself. So, hold on. My favorite light novel, the time I got reincarnated as a Dragonborn and killed an ogre. You bastards. So, Mags and Agatha. Agatha is a green hag and is actually a character. Oh, hell no, she's Hey, I said Mags before Magni, so there. But anyways, Agatha and Mags. Magatha. For the shipping nickname. They are. I have to explain Agatha real quick. So Agatha is a character from my previous campaign with Tav and our Forbidden Brother, where she was the patron for another warlock. Since green hags are fae, it was Pact of the Fae, and she pretty much had this previous warlock, this former soldier and scout, who she pretty much coerced and forced into indentured servitude as one of her personal warlocks, and is also the patron for Wester and Agatha, your favorite recurring character. Agatha, so Agatha had now moved into these new Beastlands proper. Had herself another warlock because Frisk and Archibald, who inhabit the same body, were not her only warlocks, and neither was Wester. So Mags was her other warlock. Yes, the time the hag got shot by the gentleman in Troika. Yes. I Yeah, I love how you just like, that's it, I've had enough. I'm tired of throwing shit at her. I'm just gonna shoot her. Also, you guys crashed the spaceship into her onion cottage on its asteroid, so there's that. Um so Agatha, a green hag, and her little cottage, which I did make up a map for right here. So most of this battle took here. The guys were right here, and they pretty much were like just confronting each other. Agatha was trying, like, there were lots of there were spellcasting tomfoolery, but most of this was pretty much ended real quick after Varel cast Fireball, and pretty much like caused Mags to be like, "That's it. I hate this. This sucks." Especially after she'd also gotten shot in the leg by Actian. She went back inside, grabbed the amulet, and said, "Here, take this. I hate. I don't even like Agatha. I don't even want to be part of this. See you later." So she hucks the she offers up the amulet, and Actian is. I don't know why Actian is so fucking bloodthirsty, because like he pretty much commands classic Varel moment Fireball. What is up with Choo Choo crashing into buildings? God damn it. Oh, I hate this. It's funny how like Mags was just like, "Here, take the amulet. I don't even want it. Take your take your little thing. I'm leaving. I'm out. Bye." And Acting just like, "Stop right there. You're not leaving my sight." And he pretty much tries to go after her, to which then she casts the Dimension Door and nopes out of there. And by the time he tries to reach her to try to stop her, NT steps. My favorite moment. NT steps on the onion patch where the amulet landed, and pretty much causes them to like lose sight of the amulet and have to dig through the mud, while Kyojuro and Actian finish off Agatha. They put like Actian stops Agatha from escaping in her her little floating onion vehicle, and my favorite moment was like Varel trying to help Nihilus find the amulet, and because he rolled low perception, he's just like, Nihilus, what does it look like again? Nihilus in shambles, for real. Nihilus is looking around, he's like, Nihilus, what does the amulet look like again? To which Nihilus, because he did roll a high investigation, actually found it right then, like on his turn, and said, "It looks like this," and holds up the muddy amulet. They want more info out of Agatha, so Varel wastes a raise dead spell on her to bring her back to life, and as Agatha Agatha tries to convince Actian into becoming a warlock for her in order to grant a wish by having NT becoming a medium size creature instead of like his giant size tree self. And as she's about to go back inside her cottage to kind of like maybe bamboozle the fellas, Kyojuro decides that's it. This isn't even worth a chance to hear her out, and pretty much cuts her right in half down the middle, Trunks and Frieza style. So Agatha died twice. She got stepped on by an ant, by a tree ant, and then got cut in half. Got bisected by Kyojuro, and then Drusilla and the gang sleep pretty much squat in her cottage for the night. To which Nihilus's patron tells him to like bury the specific shrunken head, which belonged to Archibald, which was a character from my previous campaign, in order to put a fellow man from Boston to send him to his final resting place, probably Boston. So that the Hag arc came to an end, but also began a recurring thing where Agatha Onionroth becomes a recurring character. Um, which honestly is very fun. It's a very fun element. What else? So, the next part is that now they're traveling through the wilderness, and in the wilderness, they manage to find an inn out of the swamp. They travel in the swamp for a few days. Luckily, NT is watching their back. Tell them who Archibald truly was. Archibald was Uncle Tav, essentially. But before I get to that, here's Tav's favorite characters of all time. There was a joke that kept happening, that kept coming up. And that joke was this: putting Markiplier in our game. Putting Markham Stonepliers, the dwarf who runs a dairy farm, in our game. You mean Uncle Tavernardo Funkle himself? Yes. So the guys come upon an inn out of the swamp, to which Actian, before they can even get there, Actian has one last moment with Enti, where he tries to convince Enti to come with him. Come with us. You're my son now. I brought you into this world. You have to. I'm sorry. Enti pretty much tells him, "No, my place is in with nature. This is my place, father. I'm sorry. I cannot go." And thus begins Actian's true depression arc, as if he couldn't get more depressed from losing his hair and beard, which, by the way, that's what he's working with. He doesn't look that bad. Like, he looks good with short hair, but whatever, it's his character. Love nature. I love nature. Yeah. So they come inside this, they find this inn and go inside, and they meet Maddie, the halfling, who runs this fine establishment. It's a very large inn. Here's the entrance. It's a huge inn. There's a bunch of rooms in the back. But specifically, it looks very empty and kind of run... It's not run down, but it looks kind of... There's only one other patron in it, which is redacted character Zenobia, the Shadow Sorceress. The Shadowfell Sorceress. So, she is sitting all by her lonesome. She's going to be the new member of the party. We had another player join in because he wanted to be part of the game. But while they're there, they notice that on the stage are 4 animatronics, or 4 what was Zenobia doing? Ma'am, what was Zenobia doing at a family restaurant by herself? To be fair, it's a family restaurant, but it's also by a roadside. Essentially, I don't know. That's a good question. I think she was just traveling and needed to find. I mean, it's the only inn for a few miles, man. Come on. But at this inn, they meet Maddie. Maddie Pat. And his animated suits of armor that look like owlbears, boulettes, hookars, and displacer beasts, to which Kyojuro loves. By the way, Kyojuro loves. He asks Maddie to, like, he pretty My favorite thing is that like during the day before the night part happens, Kyojiro pretty much makes Maddie almost exhaust a lot of the animated armors or these animated figures to like exhaust her like magic. Maddie Patty, yes. Patty Matt. Anyways, he makes Maddie like almost like use up his magic to like keep causing these 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 animated beings to like these like animated figures, like these statues, to like perform all these like all these like hilarious like old school rock hits, including telling them that it's Action's birthday to cheer him up, because Action is in his full depression arc at this point. So let's see. Maddie Pitterpat is the name. I just found my notes. So Maddie Pitterpat, the halfling, essentially has them like, he's like, you can sleep for the night for free here if you do me a favor and take turns keeping an eye on my automatons. They get a little funky at night. So everybody takes turns keeping an eye on these horrible automatons, which leads to some real horror movie tomfoolery. They played Baby Come Back for acting. They really did. Also, okay, I forgot to mention one of the people they meet at the at Agatha's cottage was a reawakened Redwing, Woodhawk, as in the man, this like all wood warforged that looks kind of like Mokujin from Tekken if he had like a bunch of totem, like kind of Native American looking kind of like totems carved into him. They revive him, they bring him back, and he joins their party too. So actually you have NT and Redwing Woodhawk, who is where Johnson Woodhawk got his last name from, join them. And Redwing sleeps in the stables because I guess Maddie doesn't want him inside. He doesn't trust him inside his establishment. And it's fine because he doesn't like... He's okay sleeping in nature. I love nature. Maddie... So these things come to life and start attacking everybody. So Zenobia and Kyojiro immediately go into like, we gotta go around and wake everybody up. Drusilla hides in her room. Nihilus and Vero go into action. Action is super depressed and then sees this like hooded woman approach him, and he freaks out because he thinks it's the woman that's hunting him, but it's not. So Action tries to step in and like fight Dizzy the Displacer Beast. Kyojiro, although it hurts him to kill these beautiful automatons, kills Bully the Boulette, Owly the Owlbear, and Hooky the Hooked Horror. They managed to kill all of them, even though they're really working without... Actually, at a certain point, Vero drops a fireball on the stage and immediately uses one of his create water spells to put it out. So that's very creative. But after pretty much handily defeating these automatons, Maddie reveals his true origin as a magic user, as a wizard, and immediately starts fighting and trying to kill the fellas. Zenobia suffers from like some kind of catalepsy and gets knocked out. So Acting is too tired and depressed, so he falls back to sleep. So it's up to Nihilus, who cannot see in the dark, and Vero, who also cannot see in the dark, to fight Maddie in the dark, who can. And I guess Kyojo's the only one who can like really keep up with them. So it was a really challenging battle towards the end. And they're pretty much having to fight around like this whole area. But eventually, also at this point, I forgot to mention, Nihilus did learn a couple of did take a level multi-class in the rogue for one level from Danny, because Danny technically is a rogue, so he got to learn some rogue skills, some thieving skills from him, and try to use his like sneak attack on some of these guys. So he was roguing at this point, and was also had also gotten a hold of the. I also traded with Kyojiro for his jar of alchemy, for the cloak of the bat, because I realized it would probably fit him better. So now he was using the cloak of the bat and trying to like use some of its stealth skills with him. So we got to see Nihilus go rogue mode while Kyojiro was like hacking and slashing against Maddie. And yeah, I think it was one of like their better like battles, because Maddie was like for sure meant to be hard. What else? Yeah, they managed to defeat Maddie. They beat him. Maddie tries to escape. He casts invisibility on himself. He tries to get out, but Kyojiro saw through his clever disguise, and one of the battles of all time. It really was. You guys just like, oh yeah, we defeated these like stupid automatons easy, but Maddie Pitterpat, oh hell no, he fucking cheated. But yeah, you guys defeated him. Kyojiro cuts Maddie in half, doesn't give him a chance, and they immediately go investigate his like room, his headquarters, and they see another suit of armor in there, a golden version of Owly the Owlbear, and they realize something is trapped inside. And who is it but Markham Stonepliers, the beardless dwarf, who loves milk so much. They free him. He says, "Oh, finally. I've been trapped all these years. My old companion, Maddie, he betrayed me, kept me trapped here, and now I'm gonna burn this place to the ground and start up a proper dairy farm. I love cream so much. Oh." So he lets them stay without any further incident, and lets them go on their merry way. And I think he gives them like a cart and like a mule to take with them, because it's just like, thank you for freeing me. Here, I have my spare cart and mule. And they go off their merry way and onto a nearby town, Cannonsburg, where even though handheld firearms did not make it, or their creation was stunted, but cannons are still a viable weapon in this world, despite how unsafe black powder is in a world where magic users can just huck fireballs at you. So luckily cannons are still a viable weapon. I don't know what it is about Cannonsburg that they do with their cannons here, but they're a viable weapon in the world still. So, and this is one of the places that produces the most of them. And they have a train station that takes you straight to Waterdeep. So they go in there. They buy their tickets. They take off. A white dragonborn tries to hit on Drusilla and slap her ass, to which Kyojiro catches him and pretty much engages in an arm wrestling, a game of arm wrestling with him, and breaks his arm and tosses him through. Everybody cheers. Kyojiro is the hero of that bar. They go to the train station. They get on. Unfortunately, Red Wing, because everybody treats him as like an object, has to go with the mule into the into essentially the cargo car, and while the rest of them just kind of hang out. Actian is still in his depression arc. At this point, Actian is in mega depression arc. He is just not. He is like at this point, like when Actian got his worst. Don't forget Moist Charles himself as the conductor. Yes, there's a man who looks like Moist Charles, who as a conductor, he's showing up. There's another meme character that shows up, which was delightful. He has a small cameo, but they get on, and on this train, everything is going fine. They're looking out the window, looking at this beautiful sunset across these Badlands, across this desert. It looks like the end of we all think it's Last Train Home to Waterdeep. We all think we're thinking the guys are thinking, oh yeah, Last Train Home is playing in the background as they're watching everything. They're thinking about their adventures. Acting is mega depressed. Zenobia is like is impressing these like little halfling kids with her like cool shadow magic and all that. But no, they that's another idea for a character in a future campaign. Halfling Charles. Yes. Please. I like to hear about that. But they get a bunch of orcs on horses get like immediately do an old-fashioned western train robbery. And these are the orcs that they encounter. And this is where this is a fight that where this big orc here holds the train engineer hostage, a little gnome engineer, and pretty much tells the guys if he comes closer, he'll blow his head off at point blank with his flintlock pistol. The guys don't believe it. He's just like, I warned you, and he like actually kills the engineer. They have like a real casualty. And then the melee breaks out. They're led by this like orc woman with her own with her own flintlocks, and the guys are just pretty much going ham. It's a full melee. Kyodro gets humiliated because one of the orcs has spell casting and casts command on him, causing Kyodro to pretty much get on his hands and knees and grovel in front of him, which is not his proudest moment. But they overcome their fight. Acting actually gets his ass in the gear and actually contributes to this fight. And they manage to overcome and defeat the orcs. One orc sees what's going on and immediately nopes out of there. He's just like, nope, I'm not even gonna fight these guys. They killed our leader, her magic using right hand man, and young Billy and this big guy. I remember killing one of them with a spell scroll of Shatter. Yes, you did. You found the spell scroll for the spell Shatter. You cast it and immediately like pretty much burst his eardrums and killed him. But a thing happened. The train, the train had no engineer, and came to a stop. So, what do you do? Also, the engineer is dead. So, Veril whips out the Wombo combo, casts Gentle Repose, then Mending because I allowed it to reform it to like heal to like essentially heal the head wound on his head, and then cast Raise Dead to bring him back to life. While Kyodro ran to the front of the train and used his vehicle proficiency to try to figure out how to get this train going. Luckily, he was able to get it started, but luckily the engineer came to and helped get the train going proper. So they were about half an hour late, but they managed to get back to Waterdeep. Drusilla took him down to where her place was, which is her brothel, the Big Arms brothel, and the Big Arms boarding house. And unfortunately, it was super late at night. Well, it's not unfortunately, but they get to the Big Arms boarding house, the converted brothel. And she pretty much says like, all right, let me just square it with my boss about all this. They were happy to see her come back. They were worried about her, and because they're so thankful for bringing Drusilla back alive. They let the fellas sleep in the basement, just like how they slept in the cellar at the Woodhawk farm. And the Waterdeep arc starts. So now that they're in Waterdeep, Nihilus can go meet his contact, a fellow warlock under the same patron. Drusilla and Actaeon or Beryl and Actaeon get to sleep with their own prospective they get girlfriends. Well, specifically Drusilla and Beryl at this point have formed a proper relationship and have now and like he now gets to, like, he doesn't have to sleep in the basement with the other guys. He gets to sleep in a warm bed with next to, he gets to sleep in a big bed with his wife, with his girlfriend. Yeah, Nihilus literally be out here being like, I get to sleep in. This is a part of the story which also brought out Nihilus being asexual, not aromantic. Yeah, which is interesting because I do have a drawing for this. So the boarding house arc, get ready for this, was this. So, here are the boarding house girls. We have Ursula the Tiefling. We have... I have their names, hold on. Oh god, where's the names? Oh no, please don't tell me I lost their names. These girls are so important to me. Okay, no. Okay, no, wait. Wait. No. Wait. Well, there's Ursula, Ramsay the dwarf, Blossom, Drusilla, obviously, the human Gyaru girl, the half elf, another fellow half elf, half orc this half orc lady, became Actaeon's unwitting girl, or made Actaeon her unwitting boyfriend, because once they got there, Actaeon decided that he was going to indulge in some of their wares, and obviously because, I don't know, I guess she called dibs on the big fella, she took Actaeon up into her room and pretty much became his crying shoulder, and pretty much comforted him the whole night and made Actaeon think like, oh wow, he's so sensitive. You guys don't understand, he's very sensitive, you know. Which I always thought was funny. Just like, man, you don't understand. Actaeon's very sensitive. He's, he's not just like a big hunk of beautiful man meat. He has his own. He's very sensitive. Thinking about starting a whole new life with him. It's funny because you mentioned that Nihilus being aromantic, because definitely the Tiefling was interested in Nihilus. So they turned the boarding house into their current home base, and then the next day Actaeon and the gang, or Nihilus and the gang, Nihilus and the gang go and meet up with his contact. They go up to and I had to print out. What a shame. Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. To be fair, she did like. So I'm getting to this part, but before a certain big event happens with Nihilus, she does it like straight up tell Nihilus that she's interested in him. So let's be real here. What was it? So one of the things that that happened was, so I did have to print out the map for Waterdeep. I had to find it through other means, and I ended up having I had the guys essentially travel through the Waterdeep to get to the fancy part, to the North Ward, because they're in the Dock Ward where all the horrible stuff happens, and meet up with Nihilus's fellow warlock, which is this Dompier this Dhampir woman named Alice and her lazy vampire companion Lee, who initially I was going to model after, whose voice was going to be Christopher Lee, but one of you guys brought up Vesper from Hololive, from Holostar ZN. Impressive. Very nice. Let's see his patron's thoughts on her. Initially, Lee, Alice's lazy vampire full vampire companion, was going to have a Christopher Lee style name or voice. He was going to talk like this and be just like a lazy kind of like Christopher Lee Count Dracula. But because one of these guys brought up Vesper, I made him sound like Vesper. I'm sorry for changing him from Sir Christopher Lee to Vesper. Had you said that first, I would have not mentioned that. It's okay. It's not your fault. I just thought I thought it would have been funny. I mean, it was funny in the end. The fact that he went from like, I told those larches not to cause any trouble for you fellas, and because they did, I'm going to have to hunt them down and possibly teach them a good lesson. Into like, I told those larches not to cause any trouble, and now I have to go hunt them down and discipline them. So, but I'm getting to that. So, they go to Alice's bookshop that carries rare books in the North Ward. They overhear the exact they overhear the business card comparison scene at this brunch place as they're walking by, and they enter and meet Alice. Which, okay, I'm gonna say this right now, Saber. I did not mean for Nihilus to straight up mention the name of his patron. You weren't meant to say the man from Boston. That was my bad. You misunderstood me. But yeah, because Alice's whole backstory was that she and Lee were refugees from Ravenloft, and were essentially in the business. I keep saying that. Sorry. They were in the business of forging identities. I had no other name to think of him for. It's okay. Really, you weren't supposed to come up with a name. I think the recurring thing was that he wasn't meant to have a name. He was just meant to have he was just meant to be your patron. Also, I should mention at this point, you mentioned it in one of my previous dead streams, like failed streams, but Veryl's whole arc at this point was him having doubts in Babe. And maybe, I think I was also kind of I was gonna see if maybe Teruma was going to have Veryl switch, or maybe start multi-classing the same way you had Nihilus multi-class as a rogue. But at this point, the way Alice is going to help you guys and give you information about where to find this hidden library in the desert, in the Anarok Desert nearby, over the mountains. The same desert you use the train to cross over into Waterdeep with. You guys were going to have to help her smuggle some information, because essentially, I said it again, because her whole business, her whole business was being an identity trader, because she and Lee, as refugees from Ravenloft, would buy and smuggle identity papers and identity information to help refugees get established away from Ravenloft and in Faerun, and specifically Waterdeep. Also kind of funny that they're from Ravenloft because they ended up being where Nihilus and Cobalt came from. Yeah, you guys are from the Land of Mists. But her specifically, also Alice and Lee have more in common technically. Yeah, it's funny how how that worked out, because the whole thing that was going to be revealed was, and she did mention this, but what happened was Alice had Alice's former patron was Baron Strahd von Zarek the whole time. Like her former patron was Strahd. Um, was going to be Count Strahd, and but she found that being under his employment was not cool. So she looked for like a new patron to help her get released from his servitude, and came across your patron, which worked out in her favor and helped her escape, and has used her means of getting out and helping other Ravenloft refugees get established in Faerun. So, which included the vampires, Chaney and Carradine, that you guys helped out. So so she tasks you into helping her henchmen, Chaney and Carradine, with smuggling some new identity papers into their little storage in the City of the Dead, which is the Waterdeep cemetery, at a certain point, from a bunch of Khajiit sorry, I said Khajiit, from a bunch of Tabaxi from the South Ward Marketplace. So you guys get ready to do that, but before that happens, another wrinkle in the story occurs. I strongly strongly dislike Chaney and Carradine. Carradine wasn't that bad. Acting Hook arc? Yes, I'm getting there. So, unfortunately, Kyodro does not partake in this adventure. Also, here are the guys at this point. Here are the fellas. They're all here. The gang's all here. Everyone loves these guys. You got Scaly, Nerdy, Spiky, Tolly, and Sadie over here. He approaches. Yes. So we all think, yeah, these are the fellas, are cool. And I can't remember I'm trying to remember what the reason was for you guys to... Oh, Red Wing is still with you guys. Red Wing Woodhawk, who is with you guys and is sleeping, continues to sleep in the stable and take care of your guys' new mule friend. Now that he's in Waterdeep, he has to go to the Carcery Island to retrieve his companion Erasmus, who was a player from my previous campaign, as is Woodhawk. And Woodhawk needs to take the closest he needs to take whatever boat and ship is heading there, because he's got to go. He's got to go for his boy. He and his boy, they're close. They got to go. And why does Vero look Pissardo? He always looks Pissardo in my head for some reason. So they go off, and this is essentially what it looks like when they go off to see Red Wing. They go to see Red Wing off, and which they meet one of Actian's finally his background actually kicks in for usage, and they meet a fellow former sailing companion named Ipop, and he provides Red Wing with passage on his ship to go to Carcery, and once they go once they see Red Wing off, and they know he's going to be in good hands, and they wish him luck, they encounter a new companion. They meet this beautiful Sephiroth looking Aasimar monk named... And what's his name again? Tav? Here comes the next character of all time. But tell what's his name again, Tav? What's this beautiful Aasimar behemoth chat of a man? Tell me. Because I'm actually blanking on Hayate. I'm sorry. I blanked on his name. I'm trying to remember all these horrible names. Hayate Sweep. Hayate shows up. This wonderful, beautiful, attractive Aasimar with Sephiroth hair and like exposed pectoral muscle with a tattoo of the goddess Lyra on him. He's from the same, and here he is. Here is Hayate. Hayate out here looking handsome, showing up. He's like, "Hello, fellow travelers. I'm from a faraway land across the ocean, and I've come to deliver a message to a man. I'm looking for a man. His name is Kyodro, and oh, what a coincidence! It's the same Kyodro they've been traveling with. So he delivers a message. Kyodro is like, guys, I gotta get out of here. And tells the guys, like, guys, I hate to say, I have to be this, but I have to say this, but I gotta get out of here. And which causes some of the greatest grief of all time. To a certain little man who everyone loves.
Constitutions may want to leave the stadium. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, so Kyodro's like, I gotta get out of here. He's been summoned back to his homeland. Has been a hyped up character. I mean, look at him. He's beautiful. Why wouldn't you want to have sex with him? It's smart. It's not gay. It's smart. So Hayate shows up, delivers this message to Kyodro, tells him, "Hey man, you guys gotta I gotta give this message here. Here's some more Hayate art." He's just like, "Hey, yeah, you gotta get out of here, dude. They're some hot tiefling Hayate's for real, the man of sex." Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, hey man, I got this message from this hot tiefling lady, and she says that you need to come home. Stuff's real bad, real bad, and back home for you." So there he is. He's just a handsome little man. And Kyodro's like, guys, I'm sorry, I had to do this. And Action's like, you what, man? You what? Action, yes, and everyone's just like, but you can't leave Kyodro. We've been through so much. He's like, I know, but my homeland comes first. Like, I gotta go. I'm sorry. Which leads to this epic scene of Kyodro saying goodbye. Well, specifically, it looks like this. Everyone's saying goodbye, including the Gyaru human girl, who's just like, oh man, there he goes, he's so hot. God damn. They're all saying goodbye to him. Specifically, this image here of little Veril shedding a tiny tear. Everyone's very sad. From everyone else sees that, but really it looks more like this. Kyodro goes back to his homeland to go confront his arch nemesis and save his wife. For good this time, hopefully. And Hayate takes over his spot. And he joins in on their team. And things go weird for their little heist, their little smuggling run. Zenobia is still part of the team, don't forget. And she's pretty. And they set up. They go meet. Everybody is very. Nihilus doesn't seem to be too bothered by Hayate, but Veril and especially Actian. Actually, Actian was maybe the biggest dick to Hayate for some reason. Actian did not like Hayate. But when you got a guy who goes fucking devil mode like this, like how can you not be jealous, I guess. So, the fellas. There's like a little picture of Umberto right here. But the fellas essentially go and meet their vampire contacts in the market. Actian meets some Al-Qadim, some elves from the Al-Qadim setting, and acquires a hookah. Hayate does not hesitate and likes to engage in the segs with all of these beautiful, diverse sex workers, but keeps his hands off of Drusilla because he knows that's his homie's girl and he ain't gonna do that. So here's the team during the vampire arc, during the smuggling arc, and the main reason that they've been tasked with helping these vampires smuggle is because Alice has been getting hit by a bunch of vigilantes known as Deep Justice. And they're essentially meant to be it's meant to be a mirror match against the fellas. So here's Team Vampire Smuggle. And they go in, they meet their vampire contacts, they're hanging out at this tent full of tabaxis, and with those tabaxis, who are just like a bunch of Aztec villagers, there is a female Panthric with them, guarding them. So, meaning that Panthric was not the only one, and also giving Veril lots of flashbacks. Horrible flashbacks. Everything in the smuggling goes pretty well. He learns of Eldritch Weed. Yes, he does. When they're in the market square, they're looking around at some of the like little job postings, and they see on like the little like bulletin board that some guy named Eldritch Weed said that the elven tobacco was was he. So he learns of Eldritch Weed for the first time there. But he goes off. But specifically, the first part of the smuggling of the escort mission goes pretty well without a hitch, and then they hit the part near where they're supposed to deliver the goods. And that's when Deep Justice shows up. And Deep Justice is made up of a half-orc samurai, a tiefling druid, a triton fighter, and a boy wizard. And first off, the tiefling fighter gets like the tiefling druid gets abused the most. He just absolutely gets wrecked a lot. Oh, and there's also a bard that uses puppetry to like harass these guys. This arc was the most story of all time. Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? This tiefling not only gets like hit by the worst spells, but also ended up getting a hole punched through him due to Hayate activating his devil trigger. He activates a devil trigger, goes ham on him, and then the half orc samurai. Actian keeps beefing his melee attacks. Nihilus casts Hunger of Hadar, which definitely almost kills which traumatizes and almost kills the tiefling druid. Almost causes almost hurts Zenobia and also Hayate. And then let's not forget the most important part, which has become a weird recurring element in my campaigns apparently. But Um, the boy wizard, the boy wizard shows up, casts an art like shoots a fireball at, or casts burning hands on the wagon, on the carriage that they're carrying all the goods in, all the identity papers, and causes Cheney to flip out and attack and kill the boy, which makes Hayate and Actian go ham and try to kill Cheney. But now it's just like, no, we need him alive. Remember, this is part of the thing. We'll take care of the boy in a second. So they hold off deep justice while Cheney and Carradine finish off their part of the thing, their part of the mission. The fight goes on. That samurai does not. The thing is, that samurai does not back down. Hayate is the most hardest fucking character to hit of all time. His AC is stupid high, and I had the hardest time trying to kill him. I think I only managed to hit him once or twice with that samurai. The only damage I could really do is that clacking spell, that horrible clacking spell used by the puppeteer bard who was invisible, and Hayate ended up hitting and breaking his neck during that fight too. So they managed to they managed to follow the vampires to their rendezvous spot, save the boy, or convince him to save the boy. Wasn't there also Triton who tried to shove Veril only to get... Yes, oh sorry, I forgot the Triton. So Veril was trying to escape the burning carriage. But this Triton tried to stop him after he hucked because he was also trying to get his he was trying to get his trident back, and he tried to shove Veril out of the way. But Veril actually is stronger than him, so he ended up shoving him back, and Veril actually brought his cleaver, his ogre cleaver, down on his head, and which killed him immediately because he critted him, I think. So yeah, it was a whole Deep Justice were a bunch of jokers who really had their goofy out moment and bit it hard against you guys. But you didn't want to let the boy die. The boy was misguided, and you guys didn't want to let these psychos corrupt this poor boy's soul. Sorry, it's probably why Hayate is the most hyped up character of all time. Yes, because something happens here. All right, so the rendezvous, despite its violent hitch, is successful. They manage to deliver the goods. You guys, Hayate almost fucking Hayate almost picks a fight against Cheney, but Nihilus manages to bring this down, and convince, and Cheney's just like, look, we'll save the boy, all right? We'll save the boy. We were looking for any for the right kind of materials, components to raise him. We probably have it in our safe house. Please give us a chance, all right? To which Hayate backs down and says, "All right, you get one chance." So while they go back to the safe house to inform Alice that the job is done, Deep Justice is out, and to go revive the boy, Nihilus meets his sister in the graveyard. So in the City of the Dead, studying all this dead, he meets his half-asleep sister, Cobalt. And he finds out that she'd actually been in Waterdeep for a little bit, studying some of the undead phenomena that happens in the graveyard. So these goddamn siblings finally meet and decide to and Nihilus, I guess, they have a meeting. He tells her, you're coming, look, you look like you haven't slept in fucking years. So the degenerate herself, yeah. He decides, look, look, listen, I'm your older brother. You're coming with me. You have to, like, sleep. I'm going to put you to bed. You got to go Mimir, okay? To which he succeeds and does. So, the guys go back. So, Nihilus takes his sister back home. Or rather, he goes to meet her the next day back at the City of the Dead while they go finish their job. They manage to revive the boy. They take the boy back and they go back. You're gonna get some sleep, maybe after my studies. Yeah, you're gonna get a nap. You need a nap, maybe after my studies. So they go in and so they finish the job. They inform Alice. They revive the boy and they go home. And Hayate is mega pissered at this guy, at Cheney and I think so is Actian. But Actian wants to adopt the boy because that's what he fucking does. As soon as he meets any kind of orphan, Actian goes into fucking dad mode. And at this point, especially since he's been in a relationship with this like half-orc woman, it's like mega in his bones now. Or I guess it's now even adding a bigger wrinkle to all this. They go and have like a little bit of downtime to figure things out. In comes the Nihilus departure. Nihilus, realizing he's putting his friends in danger, decides, I cannot have my friends be subjected to this kind of chicanery anymore. So it's more of a Joe thing, I guess. So also the boy wizard is a high elf boy. So Actian sleeps in the stables, as does Hayate. And they pretty much keep because Hayate is also has been brewing up his own beer in the stables as well. So he goes. So they both watch over the boy at night. Everybody goes to Mimir to justify him. Doesn't want his friends to go down a dark path like he's done before. I know that's what I'm saying. So Nihilus decides. So Nihilus and Hayate go back to Alice to check on it to make sure things went all right. And Alice says like, have you guys actually seen Cheney and Carradine? Because they haven't spoken to them since last night when they told me that everything was good. I was like, no, we left them, and it's like, okay, well, we'll figure it out later. But anyways, here's your info. Now that Nihilus knows the location of the desert of this hidden library in the desert, he doesn't want his friends to go down this dark path and decides that he needs to go and take care of this amulet thing on his own. Which Hayate says, take me with you. I would like to. You can't do this alone. But also, after what happened with my little devil trigger freak out last night, I would also like to see if there's a way that I could kind of learn to control this more. So, Nihilus and Hayate decide that they're going to go and do a solo adventure to take care of this amulet situation. Which changes the entire campaign because Saber has now taken Hayate and Nihilus. They pretty much they have to they now take the MacGuffin story and a good chunk of the direction of the campaign away. So now I had to come up with a second campaign. A second story arc to take care of things, but also Kyojuro comes back. I'll talk about this in a second. So this is where the campaign officially comes to an end because of stuff going on behind the scenes. No, it's not your fault, Saber. Okay, look, I had a proper campaign. It was gonna turn into fucking Diamond. It was gonna turn into Diamond is Unbreakable combined with American Psycho, as the replacement arc. Okay. So, Nihilus and Hayate, decide to go off on their own to take care of this amulet. Could have told me that I couldn't do. No, well, here's the thing. You could. You did, and I let you, and it was fine. I didn't have a problem changing the campaign, dude. Because I had other plans with Tav anyways. So here's what happened. With Hayate and Nihilus leaving, Saber brought in Cobalt to pretty much take up the team's second magic user. Varel is fucking heartbroken yet again because he lost Kyojiro. Now he's losing Nihilus and Hayate. How many friends has he got to lose now? And now he has to take care of Nihilus' stinky, unbathing, unsleeping sister. What a sick joke! And she gets to take care of the OVA trilogy on. So here's the thing. Varel has a chicanery moment. He's like, I am not losing another one of my friends. I am not losing another one of my friends. I know you can't leave us, Nihilus. I just haven't come up with a reason for you not to. As if first I lose Kyojiro and then you. What a sick joke. And I have to watch over your stinky, non-sleeping sister. And she gets to take over your spot. And you gotta stop her. You. I mean, there could have been a campaign where Joe and Terumo came up with new characters to accompany Hayate and Nihilus. Oh, for sure. Actually, technically, okay, I'll get into some things that I learned from playing old school D&D that I could have attributed to, that I should have, if I knew before, if I was more deep into it, but now looking back, that could have been it. But anyways. Okay, she doesn't bathe. Okay, sorry. The reason I said doesn't bathe is because the mask makes her look like Chloe Sakamata Sakamata Chloe from Hololive from Holox. That's why. That's why I said. That's why I confused her for a second. I'm sorry. That was my bad. Now I gotta look after her unsleeping. To his scissor who doesn't know how to sleep. You fucking. Listen, Cobalt. Oh yeah, having stinky feet. You fucking piece. Okay, so Hayate and Nihilus leave. Another sad goodbye, and it happens on the gnome girl's birthday too. Is the worst part. Nihilus, all this is going down on the day that the gnome girl at the brothel is having her birthday. No! And she gets to be an adventurer? So, Nihilus, Hayate leave. And this is where the next... And while they're getting ready to leave, Actian is on his own adventure, trying to find the high elf wizard boy who had escaped in the morning while they were asleep, which leads him onto two different chases. He meets Salty. He meets Salty, the orphan, the marine biologist turned orphanage patron or orphanage runner. I don't know what the word is for somebody who runs an orphanage, but he runs this marine biologist who runs an orphanage in the dock ward. Who looks essentially like Jotaro from Part 4. We'll come back and probably daddy it up on her. Hold on, let me explain. All right, so what happens in that? So while Hayate and Nihilus are getting ready to leave and making their preps to like go off into the desert to probably die of exposure, Actian has been running all through the South Ward and the Dock Ward, trying to find the half-elf boy, and which causes him to go to two different sad orphanages. One run by a very put upon, but still doing his best former marine biologist, and another one run by a really horrible Mo Sizlak looking like troll man. who clearly abuses these children in the South Ward. He accidentally adopts a high elf girl because he throws a rock at her because the kids are throwing rocks at him. And he adopts his new high elf daughter, Corbethany. Corbethany and Actian go back home to try to like figure things out, and on the way, Actian has another racist moment against a bunch of dwarves, and tries to, and also runs afoul of a couple of gifts. Kobold is the kind of necromancer to resurrect Nihilus after this, just to hit him for dying on her. Yeah, I believe it. That would have been great to know. I would have liked to see that. So Actian comes back with a new high elf daughter, Kara, which I just looked up as her name. So it's Kara, the half orc. She's like, Actian, I don't like you Actian. You should have told me why didn't you tell me that you were planning on adopting a kid? I mean, we're not even married yet, but if we're gonna have a daughter, I feel like having her live in this place is maybe not the best spot for her. Here, I've told the girls, but I'm gonna get a job working at this restaurant up north of the dock ward. The uniform's a little revealing, but I mean, it's better. I guess it's better than knowing her mother engages in this kind of work. So they say their goodbyes, and the new team now consists of Cobalt, Actian, Veril, and Zenobia. And this is where I killed the campaign, because I was having issues behind the scenes with Zenobia. This is the sad part. This is the part where the cool game lore stuff ends and the sad real life behind the DM screen occurs. So Zenobia's player was kind of problematic. His playstyle was okay. If by okay you mean cast Chromatic Orb and turn invisible and cast Chromatic Orb. Pain Pecco, yeah, I know, I'm getting there. Nihilus pretty much, sorry, not Nihilus, but like Zenobia pretty much was not fun to have around as a player. I mean, even in combat, I had to figure out ways to like, all right, how do I mess up her plans, because all she's gonna do is turn invisible and then waste her spell slots on Chromatic Orb and summon her stupid Hound. But while that was going on behind the scenes, Tav and I were planning on letting him guest DM the OVA trilogy, in which I would finally take time to be a player and play a character who had undergone a major change in the meantime these guys were having their own adventures. And that character was Mags, aka Margareta, the former Pact of the Fate Warlock. So she was going to come back. She was going to have one hell of an ordeal. So she was going to come back as this. It turns out that after Agatha died, she becomes a Hexblood, as like a curse. So she is pretty much on her path to become a hag, and had spent her entire time wandering through through the swamp, figuring out how to like get back to civilization, realizing that like this sucks. Also, my outfit is not built for this kind of environment. I picked sex appeal over practicality, and I'm paying for it. But after having most of her like outfit ruined by the elements, and then having pity taken upon her by coming across Markham Stonepires and gifting her and letting her take some spare clothes off of a scarecrow that he had, she finally makes it back to Waterdeep, where she hears about Alice, who helps people who could maybe find who runs a bookstore, who could have some information about her new condition. Now I wish I was there to talk about my whole OVA story plan for the OVAs. Well, you know what? I'll briefly talk about it, because I do want to talk mostly about the direction had I not decided to kill the campaign. So we'll do a separate stream where you can come on and talk about it. Oh yeah, my headcanon happened a few sessions ago. Cobalt is now voiced by Crony. Of course she is, Saber. Of course she is. What? How could she not be? Come on. Um. So, where was I? So, Mags essentially was not going to show up, and she was going to be part of a new team because Alice essentially was like, "You guys did a really good job, with the whole thing, but I need you to help me find, my stupid, Well, look, here's some situations because essentially what was going to happen was before Zenobia's player, before I kind of got tired of Zenobia's players' actions behind the scenes." She got shot and let out a guac. Of course she did. Um, Tav found out a way to like properly engage with Zenobia because Zenobia for this at this point in the campaign was only part of the team because she had nothing better to do. Because essentially her whole backstory, she's a criminal who specializes in being an assassin, and it's like, okay, but why are you hanging out with these bozos? Like, are you hiding out from someone? And that's where Tav's whole thing was having her employer come in and essentially propelling her forward to like be the catalyst for the ovas, and where I would engage as a reluctant member of the team as Mags, who now has to like be part of this team with a bunch of people that she kind of hates. She's got nothing against Varel, even though Varel shot a fireball at her, but she for sure fucking hates Actian. And at this point, like because Tav would be stepping into the DM shoes, there's no need to worry about Kyojiro. So, and also she would look at Zenobia and be like, who the hell is this trying to like fucking cramp my style? And then she would probably get along fine with Cobalt. She's like, you seem cool though. You're the only one who seems like she actually is kind of cool. Hopefully you're not like a weird degenerate or anything. And here's some more character designs for her in her new warlock outfit. Because she was essentially just gonna be like, because now the team would consist of one fighter and then 3 spellcasters. But what happened was, and this is what happened was, the campaign that was I got really tired of Zenobia's player showing up for our sessions and essentially not paying attention. Because apparently it turns out he was playing. I mean, I suspected it, and I kind of just let it go because it's just like, the campaign's too fun. But I let it get to me, and what he was doing essentially is that he would join in, be there, and just do the minimum, and he would be playing video games in the background. And whenever it was his turn to like do RP stuff, to do any kind of like interactions or roleplay stuff, he would pretty much just like have to, like, you could tell that he was distracted. It would have to get into character to kind of figure out where he was with everything. So there was that, and it sucked because it's just like, God damn it, man! You asked to be part of this, you know? How could you like not, you know? And the idea was, I mean, the solution was to just kind of kick him out of the group and continue without him. And even Tav had like a proper thing, but I don't know. I let it get to me, and it's like I said, it's my fault. Like I let it get to me too hard, and I shouldn't have. I should have just I should have let it go and just let, you know, and like just continue the campaign, because what was going to happen was Tav would do his his ovas with his cool character, with or without Zenobia. Because Zenobia, the way we figured to write her out if we decided that he wasn't gonna participate anymore, was to just decide that because she's so used to like disappearing and turning invisible, she would just disappear and just fucking run off and leave everything, like essentially put us in, essentially have us be um, make up for her whole like take over her responsibilities. Um, so after the ovas would happen, and Mags would be like, "All right, guys, well, I hate you less now, and I'm glad we went through all that, but now I have my info and I'm gonna go my own way." And as they lose another party member that was like probably just there, just not too bad. Yeah, no, man. Um, because of after that, Kyojiro would come back with um, his new wife, or not his new wife, but his wife from home. He would come back. He would also be now have one eye. I think Tav and I discussed that he would have like an eye patch now. And with his wife in tow, as well as managing to get back his belongings and treasure from home. Tav and I agreed that the thing he would do is like use the money he managed to like smuggle out from home to buy a house in Waterdeep and establish a new home base so the fellas wouldn't have to be living in the basement of this brothel all the time, because I know Ursula was getting tired of having these guys live there, especially since a majority of the people who she owed that favor to were leaving. So she was having less reason to keep him around outside, because like at this point Acton was going to break up with Kara, so therefore he was not going to be welcome there, and the only Nihilus had moved on. Kyojiro wasn't there, and people like Kyojiro. Hayate wasn't there, and people like Hayate. So now it's just Veril, Cobalt, and Actian. And Actian was going to be less welcome there. And Cobalt, frankly, doesn't really have any connection with the girl, so she was going to kind of just be like, I don't know why you're here. Honestly, I mean, I guess I owe your brother, but your brother's the one who I owe, not you. So luckily, Kyojiro would come in, buy a house, and establish the big fellas there, and then the big fellas, or not the big fellas, the D&D fellas would then have to deal with the fact that one of the girls was going to have a job, going to be employed for a night. Punish Venom Kyojiro, yes. Kyojiro would come back, set up a new base of operations, would have more to live for now that his wife was home with them. And pretty much would probably maybe be less reckless now too. Now that he has a wife to go home to all the time, but he was going to run and he was essentially going to like. What was going to happen was Blossom, the halfling girl, like the halfling woman from the brothel, the one that Acton was look, I was trying to push a friendship between her and Actian, but obviously, like, Actian is kind of like dense, so he probably doesn't care. Especially now that he has like a fucking daughter, and also Actian's player was going to also introduce a new character, because what he was going to do was that if Naz was leaving, so was Actian. So Actian was going to take Kerbethany to go back and try to convince Enti to like be his son. So Joe, Acton's player, was going to roll up an alchemist artificer, and he was just randomly going to be part of the team now too. So there was a lot to deal with, and that was going to happen after like Kyojiro came back. So Kyojiro was going to come back to just Veril. According to Joe, Acton never cared for any of the girls, and he shipped his daughter on to a boarding school. What the fuck? He really loved that stupid tree more than his own, like, living flesh adopted daughter. He sucks. Where was I? So, with Kyojiro back in town, and this new team, consisting of possibly Actian or possibly Joe's alchemist, Veril, and Cobalt, they were going to investigate the disappearance of Blossom, the halfling girl, because she was going to go off to go do a job in the North Ward, and then when whoever was going to escort her uptown was going to essentially get the hint of what might have happened to her, and then it was genuinely going to turn the Kira arc of Diamond is Unbreakable. Like they were going to hunt down to see who this guy who was killing these girls was going to be, and whoever found out was essentially going to have to figure out how to tell the guys without having to tell them and break the time loop that happens every time they die. So, safe to say the legacy of the old fellas live on in my campaign, where they'll soon play an influential part of the story. Also, all the events we're talking about are canon. Oh, wait, hold on. I need to... Wait. Hold on, Tav. We spoke about this a little bit off, off stream. But is the original campaign canon, or is the backup campaign canon? Because I know the OVA campaign is probably canon. Because essentially here what was going to happen. So I said the Waterdeep campaign was going to be, like I said, Diamond is Unbreakable meets American Psycho. And we would have seen where that would have gone. So I honestly wouldn't I would have probably figured out where to go on from there. Let them cook. Everything is canon, happening prior to the current story. Hold on, even the Waterdeep arc, are you saying is canon? That's crazy. Because what was going to happen was if Nihilus hadn't left with Hayate, or if now that Nihilus brings it up, that would have been a great idea too. If the Amulet campaign continued with a whole new team, so new Terumo character, new Joe character, maybe the Alchemist, and maybe whoever Terumo would have probably made up. Then what was going to happen was they would have headed to the desert, would have run afoul of some desert brigands, and also changes. Cobalt wasn't at Waterdeep. Kyojo never left. They all joined Nihilus. Okay, that's what you mean. Because that's what I thought you said when we last talked about this. So when the team would have gotten to so in the desert, the team would have run afoul of some local desert bandits, some brigands, and would have also they would have had to deal with Xanathar himself finding out about the amulet and wanted to take control of it, and trying to hunt these guys down. So Batrick Pateman, yeah, that was going to be his name, Batrickman. So anyways, so they would have had to deal with like both local bandits, local criminals in the desert, and as well as some of Xanathar's goons trying to get a hold of this amulet so he can reclaim his role as Waterdeep's criminal mastermind. But at the library proper, just because Nihilus is not is asexual but is aromantic, I would have thrown in a proper Nihilus love interest, specifically the Sphinx, the Gino Sphinx, who guards and takes care of the library. This giant female Sphinx was going to be very interested in Nihilus because she's attracted to intelligence. He's like a seeker of like. He's a warlock and a seeker of like knowledge, so she was definitely gonna be interested in Nihilus, and I was gonna like draw a bunch of flirt there. So small retcon: has this Pact of the Blade weapon changed into a longsword that's basically Mirak's sword, a Wooga. Actually, technically Nihilus, you can always at any point you could always change what your pact weapon looks like. It doesn't have to stay as a short sword. And like I said, if you took improved pact weapon, you could have also changed it to your flintlock. But specifically, yeah. So essentially, Nihilus would be looking at this enormous sphinx, like female sphinx. So like this picture, this like half woman, half lion, like this lion with like woman with like with like human woman with giant human woman head and some other human woman body parts, being very interested in this like little man. It's like I don't I just thought it would have been funny because I would have loved to see what Nihilus' reaction to this like enormous like woman lion would have been. Sex emote. I don't know. I like I said, I would have loved to have seen Nihilus' reaction to being flirted with by this giant sphinx. You know. Tell me another riddle, Nihilus. I'm very interested in what you brought. Also, you know, you don't, because also the thing is, at the library they would have found out that the amulet belongs to the Cloud King, specifically the king of the Cloud Giants, or the former king. In character, he would have humored her flirting. Cool, okay, but would he have been interested? Would he have been romantically? You think he would have gone for the Sphinx? Because I told Tav it would have been funny if like Nihilus returned, met Cobalt. It's like, Cobalt, I'd like you to meet my new girlfriend, and then this giant sphinx comes out. It's like, pleasure to meet you, Cobalt. Nihilus has said so much about you. To which I'm sure Cobalt would have taken. Nihilus says like, Nihilus, how's this gonna work? She's 3 times your size, or she's twice your size, Nihilus. What's going on here, man? But anyways, essentially, so what would have happened was Nihilus and the gang would have found that the amulet belongs to the former king of the Cloud Giants, and the best thing to do was to return it. Although the Sphinx would have been like, you know, Nihilus, I'm something of a collector and seeker of knowledge myself. What if instead of going back and going to the plane of air and returning this silly trinket, you give it to me? Why would you hand it over to a bunch of Cloud Giants who lost it in the first place when you can just... when I could keep it safe here in my library, and then you can come and visit and study it all you want. So that would have been the offer, and then Nihilus would have been like, I think I'm gonna return it to the Cloud Giants. I think it belongs to them. And then on their way out, the Xanathar's goons would have shown up, and the Sphinx would have like distracted and kept them at bay and allowed them to escape. But she was gonna be safe. Don't worry, she wasn't gonna sacrifice her life because she's fucking strong. Also, if at a certain point you guys did anything to make her mad, she would have aged you, or at least thrown you into the future a few years. So, when you left the library, it would have been 20 years in the future, possibly. Or you would have been aged 20 years. So, if you ever got her mad. Or just as a display of her power, she would have probably thrown you guys, and like, accelerated you guys 20 years into the future. So, what would have happened then is that you guys would have escaped Xanathar's goons and try to book a way to get to the plane of air, which again is now part of the material world, so material plane. So you guys would have had to hunt down as long as it's kept safe somewhere out of the wrong hands, he'll take it there. Well, again, she would have said like, just give it to me, Nihilus. You're cute. I like you. You seem smart. And I think a smart person would let a big beautiful sphinx like me just be in charge of this trinket that shouldn't even be in the hands of goons like Cloud Giants. I mean, they couldn't take care of it in the first place. Why would you give it back to them? But anyways, if you guys would have taken that route of returning it to the Cloud Giants, you would have gone and hunted down either an airship or a spelljammer, and have gone to the plane of air into the clouds, and would have gotten involved in a bunch of palace intrigue amongst these Cloud Giants. which all these Cloud Giants, because Cloud Giants are like the most like haughty and like sophisticated of the Cloud Giants, they would Actian, I'm sure, would have been like, ah, my cousins, I've come to meet you. To which he would have been like, to which they would have been like, us related? Don't make me laugh. Look at you, you're puny. I could flick you with my finger and it wouldn't hurt. And to think we would even be related. Goliaths are such a joke. All giantkin, because they're not pure giants, are nothing to us. That would have been the situation there. And yeah, that would have been depending on what faction you guys would have sided with, probably the one that seems like it's the most good. You would have delivered the amulet and have completed the campaign, and you guys would have probably like figured out what your character's epilogue was after that, you know. So, also at a certain point during Tav's OVAs, the third part was going to be the Kratos Messi arc. So Actian was going to finally go to the stadium up in the essentially the new money ward and competed in a wrestling match against Kratos Messi. Varel and Actian would compete in a wrestling match in a pit fighting match against Kratos Messi, while Cobalt and Mags and possibly Zenobia were trying to take out Kratos Messi's personal wizards who were beefing him up in every fight and preventing the other opponents from defeating him and keeping his championship. So Kratos Messi was mentioned in the current campaign. Damn, cool. So it makes sense. Tav said everything was canon. That happened in the Cloud campaign, in the Cloud Amulet arc. So. And that was going to happen, and none of it happened because I killed our campaign for being such a punk ass about Zenobia's players. So yeah, it's my fault. I ruined a perfectly good campaign, and the worst part is I to kind of help with the whole little map situation, I made you guys your own peg people for combat situations and on the maps. So I have Kyodro here, who looks kind of like Bart Simpson, actually. I have Kyodro. I have Varel. Actian. Cobalt. And even Zenobia. They were all part of the team. They were all going to be there. And now they get to live on as little reminders of what could have been. So yeah, but okay. Before I finish up, because now that I've gotten through what happened and why I came to a horrible end, and now why Tav had to step in and be the new DM to continue to and incorporate everything that could have been from my campaign into your campaign, I want to actually touch a little bit upon your suggestion, Saber, about having having a separate campaign going. Goofy, the blue head has. That's your hair. It would have worked for both Cobalt and Nihilus because they both have the same color scheme. But what was going to happen now? Oh, sorry, not what was going to happen. But now that you say it like that, now that you bring up the idea that it could have been Nihilus and Hayate could have been joined by two different characters on their campaign and have a simultaneous campaign going on at the same time. That's actually a thing that is suggested by Gary Gygax for AD&D. In AD&D, specifically in first edition, you're encouraged to run multiple characters. If you have a character that is recovering from a previous dungeon expedition, like let's say you went down to 1 HP and you can't afford, or let's say you went down to 0 HP, your team stabilized you and brought you back from the brink of death, and now you have to spend a week recovering, or even let's say your character is now recovering from hit point loss, and you can't afford to get yourself healed up by a cleric, Zam. Um, you're now like instead of having your character, you're having your instead of being out of the campaign while your fellow players engage um, in other dungeon delves or other adventures, instead of taking over a henchman, which by the way, henchmen, aka retainers, aka essentially your sidekick, your henchman, you were kind of encouraged to like take over a henchman while your character was recovering or was out. Or if your character died, you would just take over a henchman. The only downside to taking over a henchman is that you have to act like the henchman now. You have to take on their personality, which would have been heavily governed by your DM. So instead of doing that, Gary Gygax suggests let your characters like manage multiple, let your players manage multiple characters because instead, so that way you can, because essentially AD&D was meant to be like a living campaign, you know. So time away from the game would have been real time, especially in OD&D. Actually, specifically in original D&D, one dungeon expedition was supposed to take a week, and I think one wilderness expedition was supposed to be like a month, and then real game time was supposed to be real, like time away from the session was real game, was like time away in game for your characters. So I would like to see if Cobalt was too lost in study and Saber would have had to play Olivia for the session. That's something for you guys to discuss in your own campaign. So AD&D rules, like I said, like the time in between sessions would have been real time in game time. So like if we were playing once a week, that time between sessions would have been real time in game. So whatever time we spent in a dungeon, based off of the normal in-game time, is the normal in-game time. But between sessions is the real time. It takes place real time in game. So like a 4 or 5 hour, like a 3 or 4 hour session of AD&D with like a typical dungeon expedition, and then returning back to town at the end of the session, so to make sure we don't so the characters don't die in the dungeon or in the wilderness, and instead get to hang out in the safety of their own home or starting town or whatever. That way, like, let me rephrase this. Whatever time we spent in session doing in-game things is whatever time it takes place in-game by the game's mechanics. But at the end of the session, it's recommended that we probably end the session in town so your characters can like take their time recovering and doing downtime activities away from the game. So it's kind of like Animal Crossing in a weird way, or whatever, like simulation, like Sims or whatever. So essentially, when we would come back the next week or next time we would play a session, I would then ask your characters, all right, it's been a week between sessions. What did your character do that week while they were down? Let's say if we were taking the same DNDFellas for first edition AD&D. Let's say Actian was like almost beefed it. So Joe would say, well, Actian was obviously resting in bed for that week, so now he's back to full health and he's ready to take on another dungeon expedition. Or let's say you guys were high level at that point, and now it's just like, okay, well, Actian actually can't participate in this next expedition. All right, then I would say, do you want to roll up do you have a backup character, or do you want to take over one of your henchmen? In which case, you would now take over a henchman, or Actian would be like, well, there's an alchemist character I want to be. Or in this case, if we were going by first edition rules, Cobalt would have been a magic user. Veril would still be a cleric, but could not be a dragonborn. Kyodro could still be a half-elf samurai because of Oriental Adventures as a class. So it would be possible for me to make sheets for my Dhampir monk or gentleman or the gentleman to substitute for Cobalt or Nihilus in case something happens. It could have, except for you would be limited to the classes and races available to AD&D. There were no Dhampirs, but there were monks, and monks functioned somewhat similar. Monks were kind of a hated class. We're a controversial class in AD&D because they have some cool aspects. And here's the thing: I would actually love to play AD&D with you guys to see how you guys would react to some of the stuff. Because here's the thing: as much as Gary Gygax writes on and on about in the game about how it's not a simulationist game, it's still a fantasy game mechanic game. He still throws in a lot of like simulation rules and mechanics in the game. Specifically, let's say like because also at first level, it's AD&D is super fucking deadly, and you guys need to think smart and not have to fight everything because specifically, you guys get most of your XP because by the way, unlike 5th edition where Tav and I were leveling you guys up per session or per story arc. In this case, I'm gonna switch to. I wanna go to this one. I like this one. Just like the simulation, random clone troopers. Unlike this, unlike 5th edition where Tav and I would just arbitrarily or not arbitrarily would level you up depending on the difficulty and where your characters would have grown as characters in the campaign. In AD&D, you guys would have to track would have to actually track your experience points because I would have to award you experience points depending on what happened in the campaign. Because specifically, you guys get experience points from two things: monsters slain and treasure retrieved. So exploring a dungeon was because AD&D specifically in a lot of first edition wasn't just about being heroes. It was also your characters were mostly treasure hunters. Second edition is where you guys became heroes and monster hunters and monster slayers, and then obviously onward from that, things change. But in first edition, you guys didn't get a lot of XP from killing monsters. Cobble's simply grown as a character. Now doing cleric stuff for Hades alongside her necromancy. Very cool. I like them. I can't believe Cobalt found God. That makes me laugh because when Morgan and Moon last met her, it was like, you seem kind of like a psycho. Maybe you shouldn't play with the dead. Specifically, Moon was offended by what she did as a necromancer because his whole job was to put the dead back, was to let the dead rest, was put dead souls to rest, versus what Cobalt does, which is like this is now a thing for me to play with. But back to what I was saying, so yeah, like because if we were playing with the same characters in this game, first off, it would have been most likely. I know you guys joked about me killing you guys early on, and I know you guys would often joke in the Discord like, "Oh, Tav's trying to kill us." If we actually played AD&D, then yes, you would have all been dead by now, maybe, if you guys played very dumb. So it's specifically funny because Tav decided that all Greek gods are based off their Disney's Hercules designs. There's no other choice. Saber, how could you not have Hades in the game and him not be voiced by James Woods? How's it going? It's me. How's it going, Hades, Lord of the Underworld? Oh, Cobalt, my little Kobe Balts. I need you to take care of this thing for me. Does he want you to take care of some like big, goofy, strong, like super, like demigod? Anyways, so yeah, if it were AD&D rules, if Nihilus or Cobalt bit it in a dungeon and they couldn't, your remaining players couldn't retrieve and revive the body at a cleric temple, then you just have to roll up a new character and hope and learn your lessons from that last thing. But regarding leveling up, Hades wants Cobalt to kill Actian. Oh, I hope so. Finally, someone to kill Actian. Put him out of his fucking misery. Also, wait, did Actian... What happened between Actian and that... And the woman who was chasing him? Like, because wasn't he being chased by Artemis? Wasn't he being chased by Artemis because he offended her at a certain point in his background? That's what he told me. Did he just drop that whole thing to focus on fucking NT? Sorry, not fucking NT, but on finding NT? But yeah, so in AD&D, you guys would have to track your experience points. You guys get more experience points by retrieving gold. So it's not just like, oh, we found gold, so give us our XP now. It would have been like, okay, we found XP. You guys have to figure out a way to carry all this gold back to town, where you can either put it in a bank or in your personal lock boxes in your own home. And also every month in game, you guys would have to like pay rent. Because you guys aren't living in inns and traveling around everywhere. You guys would have to work out of a base of operations in town. Because wilderness exploration and traveling between populated areas, inhabited areas, was fucking dangerous. You guys could literally just be traveling in the countryside, and then 4 ogres could show up and kill you guys if you guys were low level. So it was recommended you guys stay around town, raid dungeons until you were high enough to like maybe buy a cart, a wagon, and be able to survive traveling between areas, you know. Because wilderness exploration was hard in the early game. Zam, we could all die from fall. Yes, actually. Let me explain a real quick thing. Fall damage is 1d6 per 10 feet. So if you fall over 10 feet, that's 1d6. 20 feet, 2d6. And specifically, if you were playing a magic user, because I die from ogre. Yes, I hate ogre confrontations. You guys would have died from an ogre confrontation. But actually, in fact, Oni in the early games were called ogre magis. Why can't ogres be nice? Because ogres are like onions. They're stinky and they have layers. Actually, if you guys did play AD&D with your characters, you'd be very disappointed to see how fragile Nihilus was, Saber, because Nihilus could not be a warlock. Warlock is a title you gain as a magic user. And also as a magic user, you have a D4 for your hit die. So at level 1, you have to roll it. You don't get your full hit die unless I'm being generous. In which case I want you guys to play by the book as much as possible. Let's just have a nice ogre who's just a farmer. Could happen. But if you were playing Nihilus in first edition, he would just be a magic user with obviously certain focuses. And you would have you could have anywhere between 1 to 4 hit points at level 1, and would have to wait until you were level 2 to gain more hit points. And again, before I trail off again, leveling up in the game isn't just like, okay, I've got enough hit points to get to my next level. New level, please. No, instead it's okay. You now qualify to go to second level. Nihilus, go back to your wizard mentor, and tell him to train you. And also, he's charging you this much gold per week that you have to train under him, unless you did a really good job as a wizard. In which case, I would probably just let you do. I mean, you can either self-train or train under. Because if you didn't have enough gold to pay for your training with this other magic user or with your former master, you would have to go and pay a certain amount or what you were able to pay, and then go on a quest for him to pay for your training. You pay for your training to go to next level. Yes, Nihilus's mentor. Funny thing is, so not only do you have to pay, but also magic users have it rough in AD&D because you only get one spell automatically per level up. But in order to gain more spells to fill up your spell book, you have to encounter other magic users and say, yo, can I copy your homework? And then they say, only if you let me copy yours. Or, yeah, you gotta pay me this much. Reminds me how in Final Fantasy 15 you have to rest at camps or motels to level up from accumulated XP. That's probably taken from old school D&D. A lot of that has to do with that, actually, I would say. Well, specifically because, Tav, I've shown you the images of the Japanese D&D rule cyclopedia. So, I mean, personally, I would... Look, I'm going to be very honest with you. I would actually consider going back and maybe being your guys' DM again if we played first edition, but you guys would be so pissed off at this game because of how used to having things just kind of be given to you through story reasons through 5th edition, which is fine. That's a perfectly fine way to play. That's how I'm playing with my coworkers at work right now, or on our breaks. But AD&D, for my own solo purposes, I kind of like as a solo game. But I know if you guys were to play this in that form, I would definitely ask you guys to play it according to the book. So you guys would have to deal with a lot of character death, a lot of character management, and also just have to deal with the fact that, okay, you guys can now qualify for level 2. How much gold do you have to pay for your training, So, I would love to, play that game with you, but I know it would be super frustrating for you fellas. Which is why usually I would suggest we do a rules cyclopedia instead, because you don't have to pay for training, but it's still just as deadly. So the game still rewards you for playing smart, and also the funny thing about AD&D, and I spoke about this on my return stream, is in 5th edition, the big level caps, the big goals and things, the big rewards you get for leveling up are pretty much reaching demigodhood, kind of, in 5th edition. AD&D, the big rewards, the big thing for getting up to high levels is you get to pretty much become a master. You get to build your stronghold, and you get to have followers. You are now somebody with influence over the realm. So, if you were an assassin, you can now challenge the Grand Master of Assassins in your local city and say, I would like to be the new master here. Or just be like, well, fellas, I'm leaving the town because I want to start up my own Assassin's Guild somewhere else. And if you were a thief, you would do the same thing. You'd be like, guys, I'm starting my own Thieves Guild. I have a little module and game plan set up for the next session where the fellas got to help Ludwig again. You want to guest DM on that? I will think about it, depending on when that is. So you got to let me know when that is, and then I'll think if it fits my schedule. But yeah, so if you a lot of the goals in the game, I kind of like because it's just cool. I'm not just looking to become a god. There's actually the game really reinforces a lot of downtime stuff and thinking about what your character wants to do in the future. And Saber, I know you'll like this. If you're a magic user, at level 9, you get to start crafting your own magical items. We implied that Veril might start up his own Chapel of Babe. I like that. I hope so. Actually, if Veril were a cleric in AD in first edition, at level 9, that's what he starts doing. He's genuinely if he builds a stronghold with a temple inside, he gets religious followers who pretty much help him pay off building the rest of that following, and he now becomes his own high priest of Babe. But if Nihilus were to survive all the way up to level 9, he could start up making his own. Well, first off, he can get his own wizard tower, and second off, he could start making his own magical items. But also, at any point, I think, in the game, when he has enough money, he can straight up start making up his own spells. AD&D encourages magic users to invent their own spells. So, because, your fragility has to pay off for something, even because man's a pig pope. I love that. The pig pope. Fighters get followers. Rangers. Also, another thing I love, too, about this version of the game I'm not gonna shit on fifth edition because you guys love fifth edition, and there's lots of things that's great about it. But one thing I've come to love about early D&D is one, restrictions, because I feel like it fuels a lot more creativity, and just the kind of goals each class has. Finally, Niles' tower. Yeah, Niles has to survive a dungeon exploration first, though. To get he's got to get the 9th level first, man. um, every class has its restrictions. For example, if you're a paladin or a ranger, you have to be good. Actually, if you're a paladin, you have to be lawful good because alignments are important in first edition, and were for most of the early editions until. I mean, even though people will always tell you, we didn't really care about alignments, we always ignored them. But if you were a paladin, you could not be rich for most of the game because you would have to essentially give a lot of your money and treasure to the church that you followed, to your gods. And if you were a ranger, because you kind of live out in the wilderness, you kind of like you really could only carry, the only treasure you owned was the stuff that you carried on your back, that you could carry with you. So all treasure would be donated to a worthy cause. So, but also rangers get like a lot of cool stuff. They're way more stealthier in the first game, in first edition. If you were a druid, you would have to be neutral, and then eventually rise up to the highest druid levels. You would have to challenge and combat other druids. Monks were the same way. Monks had, once you got to like level 8, in order to rise up in other monk levels to finally get the dreaded quivering palm, you had to challenge and defeat other monks and start up your own monastery. So I need to look up the samurai class from first edition, because the classes from Oriental Adventures definitely have their own mechanics. If Veneer was a barbarian, also not everybody, like I said, not every race could be every class. Like wizards could only be half elves, or humans, and even half elves have their own like limits onto how high they could go. I know. Dude, a monk having to go through Enter the Dragon would be awesome. Literally, what Gygax and company were inspired by for the monk. Like they watched kung fu movies and thought, if monks want to get past level 8 for higher levels, they have to defeat other monks and gain titles. So, but anyways, I gotta go eat. I think I've streamed far enough. I've explained what happened with my campaign. I've now floated the way original first edition D&D works, and why I love it, and why I'm currently using it for my solo stuff. Honestly, I kind of like it more. Like, I'm so used to it, I kind of am a little afraid to even try classic Rule Cyclopedia D&D, because it just I feel like even though it's better defined, the mechanics are easier to like define and use. I kind of find that it pales in comparison for like random solo generation stuff as AD&D does, even though it's in one book. But anyways, I'm gonna end the stream here. Tav, let me know. Well, tomorrow or the next day could be continuation, so I'll see you around. I would love to see your continue your Oblivion game, because that was fun. I want to see more of those funky zoom-ins and tax evader nihilists. Dealing with the Oblivion crisis. So you'll definitely see me if you stream tomorrow, Saber. But specifically, Tab, if you do want me to guest DM, just shoot me a DM and let me know when you plan on doing that, so I can figure it out. But until then, I'm glad I was finally able to explain what happened that campaign. I'm glad I was able to finally explain this long and twisting journey of the original DNDFellas, and now that I've had Tav in the chat explain what was going on with how all my plans did become canon, as I'm glad all my plans became canon for the characters and in their continuation in his current campaign, so that's fun. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the day. I don't know when I'll stream again. Because I should be starting a new job soon, actually. It's like a little part time. I have found some time today, so we will see. But in the meantime, I'll see you around. So I will see you when I'll see you. So I will see you. See ya.